Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Ever felt completely drained after an interaction, even if it seemed perfectly normal on the surface? Or maybe you've found yourself constantly taking the blame, feeling responsible for someone else's roller coaster of emotions. We often think we can spot toxic people a mile away, the obvious aggressors, the blatant manipulators. But what if the real threats are far more subtle, hidden in the unconscious patterns of those around us, and maybe even within ourselves? Today we're diving deep into the profound insights of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who dedicated his life to understanding the hidden layers of the human psyche. Forget the cartoon villains. Jung illuminated the far more insidious dangers that arise from unconscious dynamics, the unseen ways others can impact our mental and emotional well-being. This isn't about labeling people as evil, but understanding the unconscious forces at play that can create real harm in our lives. Stick around, because by the end of this video you'll see yourself and your relationships in a whole new light. Jung's work fundamentally shifted our understanding of the human psyche. He argued that a vast landscape of our being operates outside of our conscious awareness, the unconscious. This isn't just a dusty attic of forgotten memories. It's a dynamic force containing our instincts, our repressed emotions, and what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Jung pointed out that when someone is unaware of their own unconscious contents, they tend to project them onto others. Think of it like an old film projector. Instead of dealing with their own internal struggles, they unconsciously cast those feelings, beliefs, and characteristics onto the people around them. Suddenly, you become the angry one, the selfish one, the inadequate one, even if that doesn't align with your own reality. This projection, according to Jung, isn't always malicious. Often it's an unconscious defense mechanism, but the impact on the recipient can be deeply damaging. You might find yourself constantly trying to understand someone else's reactions, feeling confused and questioning your own sanity. You're essentially carrying their emotional baggage without even realizing it. Let's look at the first dangerous type, the unconscious manipulator. This isn't the overtly controlling person we might immediately think of. Instead, this individual operates from a place of their own unacknowledged wounds. They project their insecurities and unresolved issues onto you, often making you feel responsible for their emotions. Think about someone who constantly plays the victim. Every problem is always someone else's fault. If they're angry, you provoked them. If they're sad, you disappointed them. This constant shifting of blame can leave you feeling perpetually on edge, constantly analyzing your actions and ultimately emotionally drained. Personal story. I remember a friend who would consistently blame her anxiety on external factors, her job, her family, the weather. While those things might have contributed, she never looked inward at her own patterns. I often found myself trying to fix these external issues for her, feeling responsible for her well-being. It took me a long time to realize that I was being unconsciously manipulated into carrying her emotional burden, and my efforts were never truly addressing the root of her problems. The key here is the lack of self-awareness. They aren't consciously trying to harm you, but their unacknowledged inner turmoil spills out and contaminates your emotional space. Recognizing this pattern, the constant blame shifting, the feeling of being responsible for their feelings, is the first step in protecting yourself. Next, we have the bearer of the persona. Now, Jung understood that the persona, the social mask we present to the world, is a necessary part of navigating society. It's how we fulfill our roles as professionals, family members, and friends. However, the danger arises when someone identifies completely with their persona, losing touch with their authentic self. This can manifest as someone who always seems perfect, always smiling, always agreeable, always having the right thing to say. On the surface, they might seem wonderful, but interactions often feel superficial and lacking in genuine connection. There's a sense that you're not seeing the real person underneath. Analysis. The problem isn't the persona itself, but the repression of everything that doesn't fit that carefully constructed image. Vulnerability, spontaneity, and authentic emotions are locked away. Living with someone like this can be incredibly isolating. You might feel like you can't be your true self around them, constantly needing to perform and fit into their idealized narrative. Furthermore, they often project this demand for perfection onto you, making you feel inadequate for simply being human. Now, let's delve into a particularly volatile type, the owner of the repressed shadow. As we discussed earlier, the shadow contains all the aspects of ourselves we reject. When someone rigidly clings to a flawless persona, their shadow doesn't disappear. It festers in the unconscious, growing in intensity. The owner of the repressed shadow often presents as controlled, polite, and even moralistic. They seem to have it all together, but because they refuse to acknowledge their own dark side, their anger, their envy, their less acceptable impulses, these emotions eventually erupt in unpredictable and often disproportionate ways. Real-life example. Think of someone who is always preaching about kindness and patience, but then explodes in a fit of rage over a minor inconvenience, or someone who is outwardly very generous, but secretly harbors deep resentment. These sudden outbursts can be incredibly jarring and damaging to relationships because they seem to come out of nowhere. The people around them are left confused and hurt by the intensity of the reaction, often feeling like they've stepped on an invisible landmine. Jung emphasized that what we don't make conscious will manifest in our lives as fate. For the owner of the repressed shadow, this fate often takes the form of destructive outbursts and strained relationships. Building on the idea of the repressed shadow, we encounter the moral controller. This individual not only represses their own desires, but also actively tries to control others through guilt and shame, often cloaked in the guise of morality and righteousness. They are quick to judge, to point out flaws, and to impose their rigid standards on everyone around them. They often believe they are acting for your own good, but their underlying motivation stems from their own unacknowledged shadow. By condemning others, they attempt to keep their own darkness at bay. Analysis. Living with a moral controller can be incredibly stifling. You might find yourself constantly second-guessing your choices, feeling guilty for simply living authentically. They create an environment where spontaneity and genuine self-expression are suppressed. This can lead to you internalizing their judgment and repressing parts of yourself to avoid their disapproval. Jung saw this type as a significant obstacle to personal growth and individuation, as it prevents genuine self-acceptance. The fifth dangerous type is the complexed individual. Jung defined complexes as emotionally charged, unconscious clusters of thoughts, feelings, and memories, often stemming from past traumas or unresolved conflicts. When someone is heavily influenced by a complex, they can react to present situations not based on reality, but based on the emotional residue of the past. This can lead to highly unpredictable behavior. One moment they might be loving and supportive. The next, they might explode in anger or withdraw completely, triggered by something seemingly innocuous. It's like they're an emotional puppet, their strings being pulled by these unconscious complexes. Personal reflection. We all have complexes to some degree, but when they become dominant, they can severely impact our relationships. I've witnessed friendships where a simple joke would trigger an intense reaction rooted in past insecurities, leaving everyone confused and hurt. The complexed person isn't consciously trying to be difficult. They are genuinely reliving old wounds in the present moment. This inconsistency makes relating to them incredibly challenging and often leads to others walking on eggshells. Finally, we arrive at the psychic vampire. This isn't about literal supernatural beings, but rather individuals who unconsciously drain your emotional and psychological energy. They often do this not through overt aggression, but through subtle demands, chronic victimhood, and emotional dependency disguised as affection. They need constant attention, validation, and reassurance. You might find yourself spending excessive amounts of time and energy listening to their problems, offering support, and trying to fill a void that can never be filled. Over time, you feel increasingly exhausted, depleted, and like your own needs are being completely overlooked. Jungian perspective. Jung saw this dynamic as an unresolved symbiotic relationship, where individuals haven't fully individuated and rely on others for their sense of self. The danger lies not just in the exhaustion, but in the erosion of your own boundaries and sense of self. You might start to feel guilty for wanting space or prioritizing your own well-being. So, what's the key takeaway from all of this? It's awareness. Recognizing these unconscious patterns in others, and perhaps more importantly, within ourselves, is the first crucial step towards healthier relationships and greater psychological freedom. Jung's work reminds us that we are all complex beings with both light and shadow. None of us is immune to these unconscious dynamics. The real power lies in our willingness to look inward, to acknowledge our own projections and complexes, and to take responsibility for our inner world. Which of these profiles resonated most with you? Have you encountered them in your life, or do you see aspects of them within yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights can be incredibly valuable to others on their journey of self-discovery. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found this video insightful, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the human psyche. Remember, understanding the unconscious is the key to unlocking a more conscious and fulfilling life. Until next time, take care.